Hi, everyone. Welcome to Taking Up Space with Jordan Fitzgerald. I am Jordan, and I'm your host for today. I'm actually recording this on audio for you guys who are listening via podcast. I'm also recording it on video. Hi, guys. And I'll probably be releasing this video this month, so March. And it's an experiment. I've never recorded video before with my podcasts, and it was actually recommended by my mom. So thanks, Mom. She said I'm very expressive in video, and she doesn't know why I don't do videos. So here we go. We're trying it out. I made some notes for this podcast. It's one of my first that I'm recording as a solo cast is what it's called. And I'm a little bit nervous. It's weird because I'm so used to recording with Scott. Like, for those of you who are new here, I recorded all of my podcasts last season with my husband Scott. So to record this totally by myself, not interviewing anybody, is uncomfortable because I have a lot of fears and doubts that come up in my head around using my voice. And actually, that's part of why I'm doing this thing. I don't know if you've seen it on Instagram. It's called my 30-day audio challenge. And this was inspired by one of the ladies, Marissa, in my mastermind group. She did an audio challenge, I believe, last year at some point. And when I was talking with the ladies in my group about how I have these fears and doubts around recording things and by myself, she recommended that, well, she brought up that she had done it and that it helped her see that you don't need to have like a fully formed thought even to record something. So yeah, I'm trying it out for 30 days. And this is day 2 of me recording something audible. So I'm doing it on my podcast. I'm doing it using Instagram stories. If you want to follow along, it's at Jordan Fitz. That'll be in the show notes too. And I'm using the hashtag using my voice 30, like 30. So yeah, if you are somebody who like their voice cracks, like if your voice cracks or it's hard, like you feel a block in your throat when you're speaking truthfully, this may be helpful to you. And if you want to join along, do it. I'd be really happy if you did. It's definitely scary to me. I've done 30-day challenges. I've done like print out the calendar, put it on the wall, check off each day that you do it. I've used stickers. I've used different colored markers. I've done all of that. And I mean, it has worked, I guess, like worked in the sense that I've completed 30-day challenges before. And the thing is though, I want to start approaching my life in more of an easeful way, more flow, less pushing, less hustling. I really hate the hustle. I've lived it and it's not for me. And I mean, it is for some people. So some people really enjoy that, but for me, it's not. So trying to figure out how to get things done in an easeful way that feels like I'm in my flow. And it's something that's really new to me. It's really weird. I don't know how to do it a lot of the time. So a 30-day challenge I was really afraid of doing because I don't want it to feel like I'm pushing. So my strategy, I guess, behind how I'm going to go through this is I need to, like, I have resistance come up when I don't want to do something, but there is a difference between not wanting to do something because it's not in alignment and not wanting to do something because you have fear around it. And I believe that using my voice, it's not that it's not in alignment with me. Like, I know that I want to use my voice more. And for me, it's that I have fear around it. So when I go to record a podcast by myself, like I'm doing right now, I have all these doubts come in my head, and I think, like, who's gonna want to listen to me for 30 minutes just talking by myself? And it's an opportunity for me to think, okay, why am I doing this? Like, am I doing it because I want people to listen to me, or am I doing it because I value using my voice and speaking up, and I want to expand in that area? And so it's easy to say, but in the moment when all these fears are coming up, I kind of have to, like, calm myself down. It's okay. And yeah, go back to why am I doing it? Like, it's not like, I love that people are listening right now. I love it. I'm so grateful that people are following along who want to have these conversations, and I really hope that they're enriching your life. But bottom line is, like, I'm doing this because I need to do it for me. I need to get these things out of me and share them because, like, I know that that is important. Another reason why I'm doing this challenge, and I know this is a long introduction, I'm gonna get into our topic shortly, but today it's gonna be a long intro, and that's okay. So a big reason why I'm doing this challenge, this audio challenge, is because I went to a full moon yoga class at the beginning of March. So March 1st. March, we have a full moon on the 1st, a new moon, I believe, on the 17th, and another full moon in the same month on the 31st. So it's a really crazy month. We don't normally have 2 full moons in 1 month. And so I went to this full moon yoga class on the 1st, and it was beautiful. It's hosted at my favorite yoga studio in Sudbury. And full moons, like, for me, I normally have a lot of energy around the full moon. So I went into the class with, like, a very busy mind and very ready to flow through that and have something come up. Like, normally when I go to these classes on the full moon or the new moon, I get these really intense hits of, like, messages that come to my head. Like, I would call them intuitive messages, or, like, I don't know, I want to say, like, from my spirit guides, but I'm not really, that's really new for me, so I don't really know, but it's like these very clear messages that come through me. And this past March 1st, the message that came up continuously through my class was use your voice, use your voice, use your voice. The whole class. Like, that was all that I heard. And I ended the class and I was like, okay, like, this is a sign for March. Like, Jordan, use your voice. Like, that's what it is. So And okay, so the first week of March, I was noticing that like I would try to like I would think, okay, I want to record my a podcast episode today, and all this resistance would come up. And so I knew I needed to create some kind of structure or some kind of self-discipline for myself so that I would show up. Like I show up for myself. And so this is how I'm trying to do that. And who knows, maybe it will, will not work, but I I feel like I saw this Instagram story by Will Smith the other day. If you don't follow him, he's pretty cool. And he was talking about how self-discipline and self-love are pretty much the same thing. So for me, it's like I love myself this much to show up for a scary thing, recording this podcast that I like in my gut I'm terrified of doing, but I just have this like deep desire to do it. So I'm showing up for myself by doing this. And that's really terrifying. And I know sharing that message in itself is a huge thing because so many people listening right now, I know that that happens for you. Like showing up for yourself is hard. Like it's easy to not show up for yourself. And it's not I don't like it's not something that we really talk about that much, like in school, in our workplace. Like these conversations didn't happen when I was in school. It was more about doing things for other people, like get good grades so you can go to a good school, so you can get a good job, and then get married and have kids. Do all those things because that's what you're supposed to do, right? Not because it's what you need in your heart and your soul. So yeah, now that I've started to recognize what do I need and what desires do I have, like now that I've connected with those things and I'm starting to feel them really strongly, I'm seeing that I need to give myself self-discipline so that I can continue showing up to get those needs and desires fulfilled. Does that make sense? I think it makes sense. Okay. Let me check my notes. I feel like I've gone on a bit of a tangent. So we covered the 30-day audio challenge. Oh, something I wanted to bring up is I've been doing these episodes for season 2 bi-weekly, so releasing them twice a month. And I've heard from some of you that you are missing them every week, which thank you. That's so nice to hear. At first I was thinking like I'll just keep doing them twice a month, but I feel like with this audio challenge going for 30 days, I will probably have a lot of content to share, and I really enjoy sharing it in real time with you guys. Like I like to talk about I would really like to talk about moon cycles and all the lunar phases, maybe some astrological patterns, and connect those with what we're talking about that week. So if that sounds interesting to you, let me know, because I'm really I'm leaning towards doing it weekly now. I just feel like it'll be a better flow. So yeah, let me know. Another thing is webinar. So those of you who follow me on Instagram probably already know I'm hosting my first webinar workshop on March 19th. So it'll be totally online, but it will be live. So that will be really interesting. But also fun because I think we'll get a lot of really good conversation going. It's going to be around pricing. So pricing your products, putting a value on your service or your product. Like, how do you do that? What fears come up when you go to tell someone, like, I charge $65 an hour. What kind of fears are in the back of your mind when you do that? If you make things, if you make earrings or candles, ornaments, cards, how do you even put a price on those things? Like, what goes into that? And I'm going to talk about it from two different sides. So I'll be talking about how do you price things from a feelings side. So how do you deal with all the like messy feelings that come with that? Because it's just inevitable. I've been there. It's really hard. I'm still really dealing with that, and I'd like to share how far I've come from when I started at 15 selling things. Yeah, I've had some weird experiences, but I really think if you're starting out and you don't know where to start, or you've been in business for like a year or two and you want to raise your prices, you want to raise your rates, you want to know, like, am I charging the right amount? I will start with the feeling side. I'm going to go into the business side too, because I do have a strong business background. I went to business school, for those of you who don't know, and it was an interesting time, but I came away with a lot of empowering knowledge. And I'm a business nerd. I'm not a math wizard by any means, but I feel like knowing your pricing and having a strong grasp on why you've priced something the way that you have is extremely empowering. Like, money and power are strongly connected, and especially like if you're a woman, I'm like it's a strange relationship at first to get a grasp on how do I deal with money, because historically women have a really conflicting relationship with power. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting conversation. So that's March 19th. If you want to join in, send me your email on Instagram, like through direct message, and I'll send you the details. I think that's all for our housekeeping. Yeah, that was a long intro, but don't know how to like gracefully transition into the next topic, but it's going to be, so I'll give you some backstory. I really did not know what I was going to talk about this morning. And then I noticed it was 10 o'clock. And Scott, my husband, was supposed to call me at 10 o'clock because he's currently out of town for a business conference. He's been gone since Saturday, and I'm recording this on a Wednesday, so I mean, not that long, but normally he's not out of town this long. So he told me last night, I'm gonna call you at 10 and we can talk, because we haven't had the chance to talk much. He's been really, really like busy on this trip, which is awesome and also difficult. So we were gonna talk at 10, he didn't call me. I was like, okay, I'll give him like 15 more minutes. 10:15 rolls along, still didn't call me. So it's 10:30 and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna call him, see what he's doing. So I called him and he was like, "Hey, what's up?" I was like, "Oh, did you forget about our call?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah." So then I proceeded to get pretty annoyed. Um, I I got real mad. I mean, I'm not really a yeller. I'm more of like a passive aggressive person. So I was like, "Okay, so what are you doing for the rest of the day? I need to go. I need to go record my podcast." Like, bye. So he knew I was angry, got off the phone, and then I noticed like was not feeling good. Uh yeah, I wasn't feeling good. I felt really bad for getting mad at him in a passive aggressive way. And I noticed that I did it. Like that I was blaming him for the situation. And so yeah, today what I want to talk about is blaming. So blaming other people, why do we do it? Um, how to like get out of that blame shame spiral, because that that has happened to me a lot. It still happens, but I'm able to get out of it a lot faster and come from a place of blame and anger and then move to a place of, I guess, like compassion. So I'll explain what I mean by that. So first, know that like if you blame people for things, you probably don't even notice it that much because it's such an ingrained, often subconscious habit that we have. And it doesn't make you a bad person for blaming other people. Like this is something that is just it's like deeply ingrained. And it's not even like because oh you saw your parents do it or any of that stuff. Like it's it's just so it's a pattern and habit that you learn over time. And I'll explain first why we blame people. So I'll explain too, how did I notice that I was blaming people so much? Um, Back in August, so the month before our wedding, we got married September 2nd. The month before our wedding, I broke out in like, no joke, 10 canker sores in my mouth. Massive, like massive ones. And it was so painful. Like I had them on my inner lip, huge, huge ones, like the size of, I don't know, quarters, I guess, like big, big ones. And I've had canker sores for most of my life, but normally it's triggered by eating something like specific. So I used to be obsessed with salt and vinegar chips, and that would give me a canker sore. I promise this is related to blaming. Just listen. So, August, I had all these canker sores. I was freaking out because my wedding was in like 4 weeks and you could see it. Like, my friends will tell you, I went to the farmer's market with them one Saturday and my lip was huge. Like, it looked like I got punched in the face. So, at the time, I didn't realize the correlation. But now looking back, I can see it. So a few months after that happened, like, yes, I got rid of the canker sores somehow magically. Like, I prayed to get rid of them and they magically went away. I also got one zapped by a laser and that worked. So if anyone's dealing with major canker sores, there's a potential solution. But months later, I was talking with my coach, who I had just started working with, and I was telling her, like, I had realized that I've been really angry. Like, I had been really angry with Scott those past few months, and I'm blaming him for a lot of things. Like, just everything. Like I would be at home watching our dog at night, and he would be out. He was directing a play at the time, so he would go out for the night, and I would be so mad when he left because our house would be a disaster. We'd have like no dishes done. It'd be 30 degrees out. We had no AC downstairs. So I would just be super mad. Like I felt stuck in this house and I would just blame him the entire time. If you read my journals at that time, they're very angry, full of swear words. So yeah, it was bad, and I felt bad about it because first I would blame him for things like that were just external, like blame him for not doing dishes, for not doing laundry, all these mostly house things like that I could see. So I would start doing that, and then I would start feeling bad about doing that, and I'd think like, "Oh my God, Jordan, like get it together. You're you're freaking out about nothing." And so it would just be this spiral. It would start with blaming Scott, and then I would start like getting mad at myself, and then keep blaming Scott for getting me into this mess, and it would just keep going down and down and down until I just like I couldn't do anything. I would just sit on the couch and be mad until he got home, and then I would be passive aggressive, angry at him. And okay, so that's how I largely used to deal with things. So when I noticed first, like it first took me noticing that it's not on Scott to deal with my feelings. It's on me. Like I have to own that. So it took me noticing that first and taking accountability for how I feel. And once I did notice it, I felt like a really bad person for being so like blamey and judgy at Scott all the time. Like I told my coach like it made me feel like a really bad person. Like I'm not like I don't want to be the person who judges people and blames people for everything. So first it took me like noticing that I was doing it, talking to my coach about, okay, yes, I have been doing this. No, it doesn't make me a bad person though. It's so common. Like, I'm sure people listening to this do this daily. And it's not a bad thing. Like, of course, it's a pattern you want to break. But doing it does not inherently make you a bad person. It's just a coping mechanism. It's something that you've learned for how to like deal with your feelings. So, okay, back to the canker sores too, real quick. So I told you I had a bunch of canker sores in August. That was the month that I was really blaming Scott for a lot of things. I was blaming him for like not setting boundaries with people around our wedding, not participating a lot, like all these things that I would project out at him. And I read a book by Louise Hay, and I believe it's called You Can Heal Your Life. And in the back of that book, it has all of these, she talks about how like physical symptoms like canker sores can be partially developed by like emotional feelings or like stuck emotions in your body. So when I read the book, I looked at this chart of all these symptoms, canker sores being one of them. And under canker sores, they come up when you are blaming people for things. And as soon as I read that, that's when it clicked in my head, and I was like, okay, that's what I've been doing. Like there's no way to deny it. And that's what prompted the conversation with my coach. So, I mean, if you're blaming people and you're not getting canker sores, doesn't mean you're not blaming people. You don't have to have canker sores as evidence. But for me, it just got to the point where like everything I ate was painful, and I needed to figure out what was going on. But yeah, it really helped me open my eyes to what I was doing and what pattern I had learned to cope with my feelings. So I want to also touch on like, so why do we blame people for things? Because it's so common. And something that I learned from my coach, actually, she talked about the work of Brene Brown, and people often blame other people as like a way to project really negative feelings out of them that they don't want to deal with. So for me, if I would see like the dishes are not done, okay? And they're a total mess, like the kitchen's a mess, I'm all by myself, I'm at home, I have to stay at home because my dog is at home, he needs to be watched. In that situation, a lot of like really uncomfortable feelings come up. So, and attached to beliefs that I had at that time. So for me, some of the feelings that would come up in that situation would be like, oh, like I don't want to do these dishes. My house is a mess. I'm a mess. My life is a mess. Like, I can't escape. Like, it's a feeling of like being trapped because I was in this house by myself and I had to stay there. So yeah, feeling trapped, feeling out of control, and feeling like I'm not doing enough. Like those are really uncomfortable feelings. So at the time, like I did not want to deal with those feelings, and I didn't realize that I was avoiding them. So my way of avoiding them was, as soon as I started feeling like, I don't, like this contraction, like this uncomfortable feeling, it would instantly turn into anger, but it would project outward to Scott because he is the closest person to me. Even if he's not like in the house, he's the closest person to me. And it's easier for me to project those feelings outwards, right? So that's why we blame people. It's because we have these negative feelings, or not negative, we have these uncomfortable feelings that we just don't want to deal with or take like responsibility or accountability over. So we like let it out of our mouth and like spew it everywhere because it's just easier, you know. At least we think it is. Like that's what we've learned. So yeah, that's why we blame people. I also want to talk about how we can move out of blame. So now that we know, like, yeah, we blaming people, you probably do it if you're listening to this podcast. I bet this is something that you do. And the first step is just noticing that you do it, which is easier said than done. It's super uncomfortable to start like feeling those uncomfortable feelings. Like that is really hard. For me, what I needed like my coach to hold space for me to feel those feelings because they were attached to a lot of like just they're attached to a lot of beliefs that I had from when I grew up. And it's hard, like, people have this belief that, like, not feeling your feelings, like pushing them away is going to work sometimes. And it's unconscious, I think, like a subconscious thing that we do that. And just know that, like, if you notice that you are blaming people, this is a strategy that you're using to avoid feeling uncomfortable feelings, and you might need support in feeling those feelings. So it might be a coach, it might be that you need to do some journaling or lock yourself in a room by yourself and just like have a good cry. You need to move through those feelings. So yeah, notice them, move through those feelings, like let yourself feel uncomfortable. It's freaking scary, but you can do it. And then, so we'll go back to the example from this morning. So when I was mad at Scott on the phone and then I hung up and then I noticed that I was blaming him, I went back to this new belief that I've adopted, which is like, I'm doing the best that I can. Everybody else is doing the best that they can. Scott is doing the best that he can. And that brings me back to like a truth that I know, thinking those things and grounding myself. Like it took a while. It took me about an hour to get to this point. But coming back to that belief, like everybody is doing the best that they can, which is such a beautiful feeling, like to feel that. That's what got me to the point of saying, okay, like, yeah, I really wanted Scott to call me at 10, and it was because like I miss him a lot, and I want him to call me when he says he's going to call me, and when he doesn't call me, I feel like, I don't know, neglected. I feel unimportant. So it's the feeling of like not enough, like you're not enough. And yeah, so as soon as I recognized that, I took a step back, I took some deep breaths, and recentered in the belief that like I am enough as I am, and I'm doing the best that I can. Scott's enough as he is. He's doing the best that he can. And that is hard. Like, that is really hard. And if this is brand new to you, it's going to be hard to do. Like, this has been months and months in the making for me, and it's taken a lot of support from other people for me to like get to this point of being able to release blame. And yeah, so it's really hard. I'm not gonna lie to you, but it's totally possible. I think it takes a lot of like, okay, I was gonna say ignoring your ego, but that's not what it is. Because I think when those uncomfortable feelings come up, it's easy, like you can say, oh, that's my ego feeling like I need attention from like my husband. That's not what it is. It's like I need to feel like I'm enough. How do I get that need met? You know? Yeah, it's hard work. I feel like I'm gonna leave it at that because I could talk a lot about this. And I think that's like a good primer on blame. Where it comes from, why do we do it, what does it look like, and how can we start to move out of blame and into compassion. Another thing I want to touch on that's helped me like crazy is it's a tip by Kate Northrup, who I've mentioned a lot in this podcast. So she talks about taking accountability for your feelings, and a lot of the time it's in our language, like how we speak. So before, like a few months ago even, I was saying, like when I was angry at Scott and blaming him, I'd say, like, when you ignore me, it makes me feel bad. Like, or when you don't come home at the time you told me you're going to, it makes me feel like ignored, you know? It makes me feel. That's what I would say. Which is so common. Like, so many people do this. So what I've started to do, you do, when you blank, I feel blank. So when you come home late, I feel unimportant. It's very difficult to do again. But I think you should give it a try, because ever since I've started changing the language around it, it helps me change how I think about it. So even in that sentence, like when you do something, like whatever action it is, I feel this way. It's not you make me feel, because like he can't make me feel a certain way. It's just when that something happens, I feel this way. So in that, like, I have to take responsibility for how I feel. Like, I have to feel those feelings first, like, fully in my body, and then figure out, like, what do I need? Do I need to, like, pull, like, a self-care card that reminds me, like, I am enough, you know? Do I need a hug? Like, do I need to take a nap? What do I need? Because then that's on me. It's not on Scott, because he is not responsible for my feelings. I am. Okay, I will leave it at that. That was big. That was a lot. Let me know what you thought of this episode. I feel like having notes really helped me. Like, just I write out a few notes in advance so I can, if I get lost or on a tangent, I can come back, which is good. And you let me know what you think of this versus an interview, because honestly, like, I think doing this with the video has helped me. I don't know why. I can just see what I'm doing, which is nice. And I feel like I'm talking to someone. I guess I'm talking to myself because I see myself on the video. But I also really, like, I love interviewing people. I feel like asking people really intense questions, but also having it as a conversation is a lot of fun. So yeah, let me know what you think of, like, interview versus doing this by myself. I'm gonna do a mix of them for the rest of the season. But I would like to hear what you think. And maybe you could leave it as a review on iTunes, because, like, leave a review, put in what you're thinking. I feel like that would be a lot of fun. And I'd appreciate it a lot. Thanks, guys. I will see you, I'll say in 2 weeks, but I might see you in a week. I might release one earlier than we think, but always on Thursdays, because it's an awesome day of the week. I was born on a Thursday. Also, Thursdays are ruled by Jupiter, if anyone was curious. If you want to know more about that, comment on my blog post about this podcast. Bye, guys. See you next week, or in 2 weeks. Take care.